All right, welcome everybody, ladies, gentlemen, and media connoisseurs out there on the interwebs to another fantastic episode of Terran Tuesday. We have a magnificent topic planned, one that I'm sure everybody here has both ran into, dealt with, and created their own sophisticated mechanisms of getting over, avoiding, and otherwise eliminating from their manuscripts, and that is typos, errors, and how to avoid them. But with us today, we actually have a special guest, so let the introductions begin with Maji. How you doing?
Hey guys, thanks for letting me on. I'm kind of an expert in this category.
Hey.
There we go. Perfect timing then. Perfect timing. How's your literary pursuit going?
Yeah.
It's going. We're wrapping it up. I'm kind of hoping we'll have it done by Christmas, but we don't. I'm just waiting on factors beyond my control.
Yeah, that might be another subject to tackle in the future is the factors beyond your control in literacy. But with that said, R.H. Snow, how you doing? What you've been working on? What's life doing to you these days?
Live. And so as I'm working my way through Hellbilly Highway, which is my ninth book in the series, it's actually the 10th book that I've written, but the series itself has 9 books so far. And of course, it's rife with typos, rife, just absolutely rife with them. But I also have 151,000 words. And it's so I'm paying by the word, for editing. It's like I've got my editor that actually has been with me through this whole set of the series, which is Stephen Black, and fantastic guy, great developmental editor. And of course, I have my super alpha reader, Daniel P. Riley, and so I have to get it to Daniel so he can look at it. But there's so many words, and it's like when you're paying for this, you've actually got to get the money together for the constant. So I'm doing my brutality cut, which is usually when I go through and I write a book, I go back and I finish the writing, and then I go back and I start just editing out everything that's extraneous, especially in dialogue. I'm pretty good about not overwhelming things in my writing. But when I do dialogue, my characters are actually thinking out loud, and as a result, they will say things twice or 3 times in different ways. Like the moon was high in the sky, and I think that I love it being that high in the sky because of the way that it's shining with light. Like there's like everything is redundant. You just say the moon was high in the sky, shining brightly is fine. So you have to take it down to a more less ponderous element, and as a result, I can get rid of what I call a brutality cut. Has at least 10,000 words that'll be cut. And every time that happens, I have to, go through and make sure that I'm not, cutting out something that's important or anything else like that. So it's really hard for me because when I'm writing the whole thing, I love it. I love everything I wrote and I want to keep it all in. And I'm like, nope, you got to get rid of at least 10,000 words every time. So this is probably going to be about a 20,000 word cut. So it's going to be kind of hard. So y'all pray for me because it's hard. I hate cutting out stuff.
Yeah, that can be the difficulty, but tightening up that manuscript can really make it flow well from one paragraph and chapter to the next. That's for sure. I ran into that a number of times with my work, where sometimes you snip out more and more and more, and it looks good, and you kind of match that appropriate ecosystem. Even if sometimes you're flirting with much less words on the page than you'd want. But with that said, Black Knight, how about you, man? What's up? How you feeling? How you doing?
I'm okay, mostly. Um,
Most.
I got yeah, mostly. Yeah, I got the flu beat, and I'm almost at 90% um, here, and been working on the new stuff, as you know, um, and especially the eighth book of my original series.
Yes.
The series, yeah, including the extra stories for Substack, especially the new Shadow Fantasy. But I I went to through like this year alone. I went through some of my older manuscripts, and I noticed that like yes, yes, you keep finding typos. The typos, they are like masters of these guys, and especially in my case because I like I'm writing in my third language. I know it's not an excuse, but still, in many cases, I have to translate in my head, like from Bulgarian, and some things from Russian to Bulgarian and then to English. So yes, that you can imagine that somewhat makes things harder, just a wee bit harder. It does make them harder. So I've been doing these like massive edits and reformatting of like older manuscripts, and uh did like another edition for my first, my second, my third, my fourth, my fifth book of the Starship series. And yes, I'm not going to talk about the reformatting, and but like sometimes um, I've missed typos which the autocorrect had quote unquote corrected,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it made my job harder because of my brain, and I keep forgetting stuff, even though I have like extensive notes. But to remember, I have to reread the notes, and sometimes I've left read counts on my notes, and there is a series of notes for my last um, editing and reformatting project. And these notes, I've reread them like over 70 times. So as far as typos goes, like with each new how should we call it, it's like typo hunt, let's call it a typo hunt. Yeah, with each new typo hunt I keep finding like super silly typos, like I mean the the bad ones, they're like long gone, but like some super silly ones which like let's say super close words which um, many of us, especially when if and when we are tired, we can miss that easily. So I think that the first important point that I have to make is that when you are doing a typo hunt, you better be uh, well rested, and it has to be early morning, or like I don't know, when you shortly after you wake up. You gotta be fresh. That's what I'm going for. You gotta be fresh. Your brain has not to be tired. It has to be untired, like to the highest degree. Like be caffeinated or whatever, like tea nated, or like I don't know, whatever you drink. But you have to be fresh, because the longer like the longer I do that search, this typo hunt, the more typos I miss, because sometimes I have like I'm doing like 12 hours or 14 hours. And on the next morning, I like to recheck some of the like the pages, the chapters that I screened. And I noticed that I've missed a few like um and then the second point I'll make that is like you in this age of digital tools that are supposed to help you edit and clean typos and such, do not over trust them, because sometimes um, they will correct something that is not a typo, that's you put there intentionally. Sometimes they will scramble uh, a, a sentence or a paragraph which you have uh, stylistically fashioned in a specific manner, and or like a piece of conversation which Snow mentioned just about a few minutes ago. You want, let's say, your character to speak in a specific voice, which is quite important, as we like most of us love to write when our characters speak. And um, in some cases, I'm not going to like point at different tools, specific tools. I'm just going to generalize, like be really careful and do not like give free reign the tool free reign over your manuscript, because it might create, remove things that you intentionally place there for to achieve a certain effect, and replace them with words that you don't want to use, or like make mistakes. It just double check it. Just be careful and double check. And of course, like the third point is to have at least three other people to screen the manuscript for you, because when your brain might go like gloss over something without noticing it, another brain will. Trust me.
Is that your process? Do you go like through three separate individuals?
Well, yes, and even after the three separate individuals, even after that, there is no 100% guarantee.
That's what they say, isn't it? Like that's one of the things I think a lot of
Yeah.
new writers hear. You know, don't get too bent out of shape about every single typo. Happens to
Mm,
everybody. You know,
just
everybody falls off that bike.
I'll give a recent example, which a friend of mine told me. I wasn't aware because I hadn't read, like, talking about Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling. I haven't read it in English. I read it in like Bulgarian reprint here. Um, but my friend told me that there exists like a highly sought after, like it's highly sought after by collectors, like fans of J.K. Rowling. There is a specific edition, like an earlier edition of her first book, first Harry Potter book, which is like littered with typos. Like there was like he said that there was a page with like 10, over 10, like 11 or 12 typos, just one page. And this is like we're talking about like a um professional editors, professional formatters, like an entire fucking team. It's not just like little us. I mean, that's not an excuse. I'm not making an excuse for like us indies, but it's just to point out how tough it is to fucking hunt the fucking typos. They're elusive. Their level of ninjutsu is, or let's say typo jutsu, is max. They have max level. They are sneaky. They are amazing. I mean, if we could only harness the power of typos to hunt other typos, that would be nice.
That's a good one. But yeah, it's something we all deal with. RH Snow, what's
Yeah.
your process like trying to get all these typos out of there? Because you guys got a lot of words to deal with. I just do like those little short stories. You guys got like tons of words to deal with.
Okay, well, the first thing to know is that I'm half blind. This makes typos fun. Okay, so let's talk about it. So actually, I had a discussion about this today online. We were talking about degenerative eye conditions. I actually was diagnosed with macular degeneration in about 3 years ago, and also had early cataracts. I'm not really that old. I'm like in my early 60s. I have early cataracts, and I have a condition called keratoconus, which is actually where the corneas are warping due to a condition I have called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which means I'm really wiggly and I can sort of double jointed, and I have very different kind of skin because I don't have a certain type of collagen that's in it. Well, that means that my eyes have a wavy pattern on the edge and makes everything distorted. So I found this out, and I managed to take some Arids, which actually is a type of supplement, which helped knock the macular degeneration back. Which I'm so thrilled about that, because now I know maybe I won't just wake up and be blind, because that's the terror of macular degeneration, that you could wake up one day and it's suddenly advanced and you can't see anything. But however, I still have this other challenging condition, which is called keratoconus. It changes the way things look when you're reading. So I have it, it's right in the center of my vision field. And as my eyes are scanning to the right, from right to left, the letters will change shape, because it's like a wave in a mirror. Like if you were like, have you ever had a wavy mirror where you, or a wavy piece of glass where you move your hand behind it and the shape will change? That's happening.
Oh yeah.
It's happening
Uh,
trying to scan the words. So I am absolutely littered with typos. I mean, you can tell. Actually, it shows up a lot on my typing on X, where because I'm using a touch typing. When I have an actual real keyboard, I do much better. But when I'm using just the little screen board, which you can't feel what the letters are, it gets really hard really fast. So that's my proof of life. That's who I am. You'll know it's me. There should be at least one typo in everything, because S's, especially for some reason, are very hard to distinguish. And so I don't see letters and words the way you guys do. In fact, when I'm reading it, if I'm looking straight at it, it'll look like one thing. And then as my eyes move from right to left, it will change shape, meaning that I'll go back and actually look at it again to make sure it's right. And it'll just look funny. And then it's like really bad astigmatism. And they can't really fix it. They can't do anything about it. So it's a degenerative eye condition. So that makes typos for me a special challenge, because it means that I'm going to have twice as hard of a time doing this. And so I've learned to embrace it. First of all, I back before I knew I actually had this going on, I kept on finding typos. It would just drive me nuts. So I am the queen, the absolute queen of typos. I am very excited about my future, because now you've told me about J.K. Rowling. I know that the very first edition of Watcher of the Damned, which was Transmutation Texas, the first one was absolutely horrendous. It was like one of those things where you literally looked at it and you're like, everything's cool, it's awesome. And there was like a string of nonsense characters that was on one page. It actually showed up because my cat had jumped on the keyboard and I had no clue. And so I read
oh boy.
10 times, and then it was just like right there. Or because I have pets, it's very exciting that when I get up from my, you think everything's cool, but there's a thing called a cat. How many of y'all have cats? Do you have cats? Very small dogs.
I had cats.
Yes.
They get some outside.
Okay, right. So they jump on stuff, right? So I would go away from my keyboard and I'd be like, this is cool. I've got something taken care of. I saved it. And it turns out that right before I saved it, that there was an animal that came up and maybe erased like half a paragraph, or in one case actually
Oh,
pasted a paragraph twice.
Yeah.
If you find, okay, here's the cool thing: if you find that double paragraph, let me know. If you can get on my Substack or on my X, find the double paragraph and watch her the dam. There is one paragraph that was repeated twice. That's where my cat cut and pasted it, and nobody caught it. Nobody. I have wonderful editors. The first series for Watcher the Dam was actually Art DeVitalis, and he was like a local newspaper editor. He did my stuff for me. Wonderful guy, and so he was also working on it. You know, everybody, and nobody saw it because I guess it looked okay. But so we're doing this by human hands. So the second thing about me, in addition to my eyes being degenerative, and I have a tendency to miss things, and the second thing, being the cats and dogs, and they jump on my stuff. Well, the third problem that I've got, and for some reason it's just one of those things that just haunts me to this day, is the fact that I cannot, for whatever reason, if I go through and I'm doing a search and replace, I do it and it will add like an extra space on the end or something. And I have no clue. It's like you go, that's why I started doing it by hand. If I'm doing any search and replace, I don't do and replace all. Immediately go back
Yes,
to the
exactly.
or something, because it will absolutely nuke you from on high. It will be crazy what you will see out there. And then so I need to, always go back and look at it. And that leads me to my next part of my process, which is I do not use spell check. Because my vision field is so cluttered already because of all the ripples and things like that. When we have those little red squiggly lines under everything, because I have a sci-fi world, I have a lot of made up words. I have words that are actually what people in Texas, 100 years from now would probably use. They use compound words, a robe sack is, it's kind of like a snuggle robe or whatever. They call it a robe sack, or they'll call it something where they'll use compound words. Well, spell check just hates me. Grammar hates me so much.
Just add them to the spell check dictionary. That's what I did.
Like a million of them. There are so many, and so
it's easy.
I just turned that little sucker off. I did
or
not
turn it off. Yeah.
just stop. So now, of course, then it's up to me. So I've got it. So that's my process as I go through doing my thing with that. I have a tendency to take those things into account when I'm writing my books, and so I have a whole extensive thing. And I'll go into it in just a minute. I'm going to let other people talk. But when I'm dealing with these challenges of environmental issues that are, cats and dogs and things like that, or the inability to be able to see the page properly, it really presents a lot of challenges. And I've learned how to embrace the fact that there may be a few typos each time. And I'll tell you how I have found them and what makes it special, and the fact that I'm able to actually hunt them down myself with a couple of tricks that really made the difference for me.
Well, did you summon Cthulhu? I'm joking. I find it really like interesting that like all of the typo and other kind of mistakes, errors that compile are pretty much the same with all of us. Because I mean, you mentioned like the double paragraphs, like, and stuff. In one of the newer books, which passed through not 3, 6 people, there was like an chapter which was like older chapter, which was out of sync with the file, and nobody saw it, including me.
Oh no! Oh no!
Nobody saw it. And yeah,
some of the readers saw it.
yeah. I mean, I noticed it after I've like a day after the files have been already in circulation. So yeah, but one of the one of the things that's now mentioned is that like you have to go and manually check and be careful to not auto like just auto click and replace all or change all, because you're going to screw up your draft. You're going to screw up your manuscript. It's and especially with in many cases with double spacing, which is something that is common when you split the paragraphs. It happens in some cases. You can even lose the you can even lose like the the full stops or the quotation marks. You can lose them by just during the process of you splitting paragraphs or like moving, copy pasting lines of dialogue and something that you want to like rearrange while you're like reworking the chapter or a scene or whatnot. And this is how I got to discover one of my most egregious typo ever, which is the word "nigh." And you can probably imagine right now. You can probably um, get the idea of what other word was it. Like instead of night was nay. It's what the horses are doing.
The nay.
Yeah, the nay. And this um I discovered it while I was fixing a piece of dialogue. I was fixing the formatting of the dialogue, and I I just like looked at it, and the typo looked at me, and it neighed in my brain, and I neighed, and the computer neighed, and and the chair neighed, and yeah, and I discovered like every single time that I used night was not a night, was nay. And I had to go back and change. Like, I mean, I did not overuse the word. I mean, I had like had it maybe in one of the books. It was like 5 times used, only 5 times, but like that. That's enough. That's enough. Enough courses. Enough course talk for one book. Plenty. So yeah, that's ah, and some people, like one of my um, Sigma readers, she's not a beta reader. She hates to do beta reads. She's like the last reader after the editor and the editors, and she fixes the mistakes of the editors. Like she
Oh
she
wow.
finds things that the editors missed. She finds them. And she's like, um do you know, one day she said, like, do you know, like, because you're constantly lamenting the fact that like you and many other indies, like, you do not have enough, like, your skill is insufficient, or like you don't have the time and the resources to hire professional editors. And she said, like, in one of her uh, jobs, she is paid to fix like the errors in technical manuals, like the errors of the editors. She goes after the editors errors. She's not like she's not even uh, she's not even fixing the mistakes of the actual writer or the writers in this case, because like it's a technical manual. Like, you can have like numerous writers there, and she's like, yes, you have no idea how sneaky these little pesky typos can be. And she and her colleagues, they had like a theory that like one has to have like a specific mindset. You don't have to be a genius, you just have to be in a specific mindset. And it's like a magic brain sight. It's not an eyesight, it's a brain sight, state of mind, and you're going to see the invisible typos. I can't. I can't. I'm like, on my best days, I can maybe see like a few, and that's it. And even that is like, for me, is a huge victory. But yeah, that's and yes, even the big publishing houses have typos. It's inevitable. They maybe have like very few typos, because they employ like a huge team of people, and like the more different sets of eyes and different brains look at a certain piece of text, the greater the chance to like nullify the ninjutsu capable typos is. So yeah, what I'm getting to is like, is that if possible, we need to have the aid of numerous people.
Yeah.
That it doesn't. It's
I
like you
yeah.
can't just go around it. And it takes time.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt like night. I agree with you 100%. I actually had to put in some overtime, get some money, extra money saved up so that I could hire Bob. Some of you guys know who Bob is. Actually, everyone on the panel knows who Bob is.
Bob
But
is fine.
Gino is Gino's probably his more common name. But no, if you know a grammar Nazi, hang on to them for dear life, because I'm
He's
just
not
like,
a grammar Nazi.
yes, he is.
He is.
But
He's a grammar commie.
Oh.
he's a grammar something. We'll say that. But he's an awesome grammar guy. I probably can't say the Yahtzee word on YouTube. Sorry, I didn't mean to, James. But anyway, so no, even Wrangler. See, Gino rocks. He's if you guys know a friend that is very very solid on punctuation and stuff, especially if you're writing as an indie, hang on to them for dear life, and they're worth paying. Because in my case, I actually learned from my example here. I am dyslexic.
Yay.
It has come back. I has come back and bite me many many times, including coming back and um well, I failed a few classes because of formulas switching in my head on exams and stuff. 100% my fault. There's no way around it. But anyway, so one year I decided I could do my own taxes. I'm
Really?
dyslexic. Just yeah, yeah. I'm dyslexic and dysgraphic, so numbers and letters. There's no differentiating. I'm gonna screw them up and flip them some way, shape, or form. But I thought it was a good idea. I thought I kind of worked it out, reworked it, double checked it over and over and over again. Well, after I filed them, I realized I made a huge mistake that actually ended up costing me a lot of money because then I had to turn around and hire a tax accountant to fix it.
Oh, no.
So, lesson learned. If you got a buddy that's really good with numbers and letters, Just pay the extra money. Don't go about it on your own. You might end up getting burned.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you there. You know me. I'm slightly dyslexic. I wasn't. I
I wouldn't
developed
call
it
it
after.
dyslexic. You have 3 different languages, all with different rules. I don't call that dyslexic. I just call that the barrier between
No,
languages.
no, it's like in I think like in the last 6 years, I've like slowly like degenerated into like a higher levels of dyslexic um, errors. Like I've
We
noticed,
just call that old timers.
yeah, that too. But
Eh.
I've noticed that some words I just automatically begin and even write them like backwards, inverted, and then I my brain doesn't register them, and on the next day or like a few hours later, when I screen back the draft, I notice them and I change them, and it's scary me because it's getting worse.
Mm-hmm. No, I feel you. I was just giving you a hard time about the old timers.
Eh.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one thing people don't think about too much is the
The
issues.
inevitable advance of old age,
Yeah.
James.
No, I mean what it could do to your writing as it goes.
Oh
The
yeah.
more speed bumps you'll have to sort of make way for and deal with and things of that nature that people don't foresee. You think you got yourself a good little formula going. Think you could just go on with the rest of your life having the same sort of stop gaps in between to keep those
Mhm.
pesky those pesky infiltrations from those typos to populate your literature. But as you go and you want to take this seriously, you want it to be a career, you probably got to think about that. You probably got to think about the stop gaps and what you got to add, what you got to do over time. Recognize the possibility of growing weaknesses and how that's going to affect your work. Like RH Snow, like has this been something you ran into throughout the years? Because your series is like 9 books long, so you've been writing it for a while.
Yeah, I've been writing it about 4 years actually. So I've got a little bit of time behind me. I mean, the series itself, as far as the very seeds of it, started earlier, but actually going, oh wait a minute, I'm actually going to publish this, was later. And so the actual turning it into a book was a little later. And so for me, there's this over time change. But there's a few things that I've stuck with that really haven't changed very much. Part of it because we're moving so fast with the series, because I've wanted to finish it out quickly. I wanted to go ahead and write the whole story all one, together. And I've got a huge arc. I've got a 60,000 word arc that's actually out there, and so I have this whole bunch of moving parts and factions and everything else. So I frequently will go in and write extraordinarily long chunks of it. I actually wrote the first 6 books entirely before turning it in I think it was 61 episodes before turning it into a series of 6 books that were almost like 900,000 words. And so with those 6 books all stretched at once, I was able to see them as a giant chunk. So you see that editing process as it was the whole way through. And it was done within a period of, I think, 18 months, where we actually published them back to back to back. Just went out and put them out because I'd already written it. I had to turn them into books, edit, do all of that stuff. But the basics were there. So my process hasn't really changed very much because I haven't really been doing it that long compared to a lot of other people. Like, I think Black Knight, when did you start writing?
Ooh.
I mean, as far as your books, like where you going?
When did they start publishing them? Or translating them and rewriting them from the original drafts into English?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that was, I think that was like around like 2008.
So you've got a big arc of of how you've changed as a writer from the time you started publishing yours, where mine and mine much shorter. And
I
so,
mean, in my cases, like everyone has its troubles. You're turning into a fae. You'll grow wings soon, and you're going to like start casting spells and stuff. Like, and your eyes will transmogrify, and you'll start seeing the spirits and
cool.
stuff. And like in my cases, um I was dealing with my inability to realize that like the trad pub scene here was totally rigged, and I was like super naive, and I was like, yes, I'm going to find this publisher and who will take me, and everything will be fine. And no, and it's like this is how I wasted like over 10 years
Wow.
my life, pretty much, like going from publisher to publisher, going through different like editors and people who are like agent adjacent, like who know, like he knows or she knows the guy or the gal who knows that other guy or that other gal who works at that publishing house, blah 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 blah, and it doesn't work. So yeah, that's like every person has like a different they had a different road. But yeah, pretty much I began switching into gears, like into English gears and English writing gears back then. And of course there was literally no one, like no English speaking person to help me. I had one of the old teachers from my high school days, but she was like she had like some life issues to deal with, so she couldn't help me. I guess if I was lucky and she like she had the time to help me, things would have been a bit different. But no, that's just what happens in life. um yeah, that's and now almost 14 books later, um but what can I say? I mean, in my personal case, let's say if we're talking typos, just like for focusing on typos, my best helpers in the allies in the fight against typos were some of my first readers, and many of whom who are there still. You know who you are. They are still with me. They contacted me personally via social media or emails, and they said, yes, like this we like this character, we like this and that, but like could you tell your editor that we found these typos over there? And I would say them like, well, I'm ashamed to tell you that like I don't have a professional editor. I didn't have anyone, literally anyone. In the very beginning, I had no one, and they would be, "Ooh, would you like us to help you?"
Cool.
So that's yeah, that was the beginning.
We see, and for me, and I know for Maji, a lot of it, we start off, and it is the same thing. Is we find friends who want to read it, and we just go, please look at this book. And one of the things I think is different from a lot of our counterparts in the trad pub side of it is I don't have a lot of beta readers. I've kept my beta reading circle actually very small because I already knew what I wanted for my characters. I don't do it a lot of people love to do it chapter by chapter because it's kind of like having a group think. You get a chance to read people in, and they're like, "What do you think about this?" I usually have the whole book written. It's the characters are in that part are in stone. There's very few times that somebody's come to me and said, "You kind of need to change this about this particular character." I usually have it down. It's usually about how the flow is going or where a certain passage might go, but very rarely do I ever, have something major changed in the story. And so my beta readers it's a very small circle. One of my daughter is one of them. She's actually Air Force. She was former Air Force staff sergeant. She's my grammar Nazi. Absolutely comes in and hits the typo. She's the one that sees the things that, as far as the actual typo itself, misspellings, mistyped words where you have too many spaces behind the word or something like that. If she's got that in there, she'll come through and she parses that out. My son, who actually went to college and graduated with an honors degree actually in psychology and in religion, but the great books were his secondary skill level. And he actually got that as his second degree. And he went in and he'll go through it and read it, and he'll talk to me about the world building, what's off. But he also hits the typos. And then I have my husband that reads it. That's it. That's my family's actually my beta readers. So it's a very small group. So we see the same things over and over again. And we have a tendency to look at them, every time that way. And before I send it to my editor, I usually have two people that will look at it. I have Stephen Black, who is my developmental editor. I have Daniel P. Riley, who is my alpha reader. After everything else is done, I send it to Daniel. And usually they go out, the first read will be done at the same time. And then Daniel will give me his opinion on that last product. And he finds a lot of typos right then. Stephen takes it. He usually parses everything out, gets it all done, gets it polished up. My final step is with Melanie Callahan, who is my formatter. And so instead of me having a whole lot of beta readers looking for it, I've got 3 beta readers, and then I've got 3 support staff basically with Daniel and Stephen and Melanie, because Melanie's the one that's going to format my book. And she's the one that's most likely to see things. Why does this work when I have 6 people doing it? The reason why is because each one of them is seeing it for the first time. They're not reading it constantly, so it's fresh. That means they see it for the first time. They'll see that typo jump out at them. So that's the part that they're getting. That's usually the polished part that's going to be going to the editor and going to come out at the other end. And they're seeing it right then. So they don't, because when we read things over and over again, we have a tendency to start missing it, especially when we have big edits or we have things that are added in. So I keep my circle very small. And my last 3 readers are the ones that are actually making the book happen. So those are my 3 people. But the other tricks that I use before I send it to them, every single time, I have a tendency to go ahead and I try to read my own books over and over again. Now, this is a double-edged sword because you go through and I read it. Usually I'll write a section, I go back immediately and read through it to see if it feels good, especially dialogue. And you get to where you're so used to the way it looks that you'll miss entire chunks.
Yep.
Familiarity fatigue.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you get to where you're so familiar with it. You see it in your brain, but your eyes don't see it. So there's a few tricks that I've learned that help me to change it. And I do not do this until I am ready to get the copy edit done. I have all my developmental edits done before this. I get my copy edit back, or I get my developmental edits done. And usually I'll have a read through and then I'll change a little bit of sequencing, or I may do some segues or add a couple of scenes in. Usually I have to add a scene rather than take one out. It's usually to add something in that'll help bridge a particular part or explain something a little better. And then I'll do another brutality cut. Once I do that brutality cut where there's a whole bunch of jargon that nobody wants to read and all the Warhammer style lore that I keep throwing into things because I just love lore. It's just my favorite thing. After that, and after they go through the developmental edit, I now have this product that I'm ready to have copy edited. And I want it as perfect as I'm going to get it. So I take that part where I write that last sentence and I go, this is it. I've edited all I can do, because I will edit until the cows come home. I will edit forever if I don't stop myself. There's a certain feeling you get where you know you've edited enough and you put it down. Change the font size. Make it bigger, make it smaller. In my case, I usually have to make it smaller because my eyes are bad enough. I actually have the 14 to 16 point font. Sometimes 18 if I'm having trouble with eye strain. And I usually have that font all the way through it. I think it's 14 is what I'm using right now with a And I also always, and I don't want anybody fixing this, I have 2 spaces after each sentence. It's there for a reason. They took it out because they wanted AI to be writing all this crap. No, there's two spaces after each sentence. It makes a gap for me. I can read better. Thank you very much. Change the font size. I'll scale it down to the 12 font size, 12 point font, which is usually, I think, what's industry standard. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Isn't the 2 spaces an old typewriter trick?
Yes, it was there.
Yeah.
It was also to put a break between the sentences so you could see that's where it ends. That's where the sentence ends.
Oh.
You were able to see that more effectively. It is part of flow, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I tell people, leave my stuff alone. But so that's what I do. And yes, now you know it's written by a human because it has 2 spaces after every sentence. I can prove this mine. And usually you'll see it pop up, even if they've edited it out, it'll still pop up because I always go back in after they do the copy edit and I throw in some stuff to make it mine. I'm evil that way. Yes, I do that. I'm so sorry, editors. I do go back and actually add some things in after they finish the edit. Font size. Your eyes reset. You're so used to reading it the way you have been reading it that you see the page, that you see the paragraphs end where in your brain it's used to the pattern. By changing the font size, you will see the page in an entirely different way. It's absolutely electric what it does for you because you see it and it'll suddenly, a page break where it's not supposed to be will stand out. A typo where the word is misspelled or where you've left something dangling will suddenly jump out at you. So change the font size. That's the first thing that I would suggest. The second thing is to put it in a different reader. I type out everything in Pages, which is on my iPad right now, but I also use Open Office or I use LibreOffice when I'm working on a computer. And so when I switch formats like that from Pages to LibreOffice, it actually sets the page up slightly different. It has the same effect. It changes the way that the words are arranged on the page. So I'm not seeing it the way I've been seeing it for months at a time when I have the same font size that I've been using, the same margins, all that stuff. It's always, when you change it up just slightly, your eyes are going to see it differently. And you will be able to see those typos jump out at you. And so just by changing those little things, you're getting rid of that fatigue and you're changing the environment on which the words sit. And that helps you to find those typos more effectively. And the biggest thing that I have done, and like I've said this before, I don't use Grammarly. I didn't, and there's nothing against that. There's nothing against people saying, okay, I want to have a spell check. But I stopped using it because it changes the way that I write.
Yeah. Exactly.
We have to decide how we lose the narrator's voice if the narrator is constantly speaking in a neutral tone with Chicago style grammar. We have to decide, how does the narrator speak? Do they have a lot of ellipses? Do they have these M dashes and everything that people are now saying that we mustn't use it because it will indicate something's AI? Let some of those, what would normally be considered a grammatical error, stand, especially with your dialogue. You have to have some of that in there. People don't speak perfect English all of the time. If they are all speaking in perfect English every time, you cannot distinguish the characters' voices. Everybody has a rhythm. They have a different rhyme. So when you're going overboard with your grammatical errors, or with other things, there's things that you normally wouldn't want to do. For instance, a and an. It's a big problem for me. I'm always constantly throwing in an because I put another word there and I changed it later, and I've got an particle, or something like that. It's not supposed to be there. I have to go back and make sure I'm checking for a and an. But anything that would be a normal voice, that would something that somebody would say. We don't want to make too many repetitive words or is, things like that, but we want to let it sound like a natural human being talking. That means it's not going to be grammatically perfect every time. So some of those little grammatical errors where put the words in a pattern that wouldn't normally be spoken by everyone, if you keep some of that in there, it's going to make it less homogeneous. The question is what sounds like a person talking, what sounds like you didn't know what you were doing. That's a fine line. For instance, Like I said, there, and there. You can't do those wrong. That's one that people are going to absolutely flip out over. And I have to go back and check that one constantly to make sure that I haven't done the wrong one. I usually actually do a word search, and this is a brutal thing to do. I have gone in and put in THEIR and then search the entire document, 140,000 words for there spelled that way to make sure that it's put in there properly. And then I go through all the permutations of the ones that are the most common grammatical errors. And I do it by looking for it. And that's the one that's going to get you, that when people say, well, you've made a grammatical error, it's that one. Almost always it's there, and there. The other thing are apostrophes where they're not supposed to be. It's versus its with IT apostrophe S or ITS. I do an actual search by hand of each one. And it takes a long time, but you know what it does? It makes me see other things that I've missed. It makes me see where I didn't finish out a sentence, which happens to me a lot because I start thinking about something and I'm going to cut and paste something there, or I'm going to put another scene there and I forgot to put it in, like a
Yeah.
two sentence structure. And that helps me see it. So in doing those little brutal manual changes, I'm actually forcing my eyes to see the page in a new way, and I will find typos that I never found before. And that makes a difference for me. And the ones that are most likely to escape me are doubled words. Of, is, the. Usually at the end of a sentence, and then it picks up at the beginning of the sentence. Changing your format, changing your font size will immediately put those things into focus because now it puts them together and you see them better. And so even if you have grammatical AI on and it's looking for these things, it can still miss them if it believes that there's a reason for it to be there. So doing those little things where you change the formatting on it just slightly, not so you're going to mess up your document, but changing it to where you see it differently will suddenly open your eyes to where those typos are on the page and will help you really nail those down.
Yeah.
So
To add on that, I would say that another trick would be to change the font, not the font, the shrift type, into something that you're not. Sorry.
You okay?
I said I was mostly healed, but I'm not 100%.
That's not funny.
So, change the shrift to a shrift that you're not normally using, something blocky and big. And the second one, which one of my formatters taught me, was to change the color of the background color to something like a flashier color, like green, for example.
Yeah.
So that helps too. I don't always do that, but when I do it, I catch a typo or two or some other things and like stuff that you mentioned, like doubled words and stuff. So yeah, sorry to cut you off, Magic.
oh, you're good. I was about to say I actually use those moments to. Well, I did. I'm going through first novel pains, as everybody in here knows, but I actually use those frustrating typo grammatical errors to my advantage.
Really?
So, for example, I have two examples actually. First one is my Minotaur speaks caveman very broken English, but I did that to distinguish him as more of a beast creature and separate him out from the humans a little, because everybody in my story I tried to give everybody a different way of talking, so then that way the creatures and the characters felt more real and different. Some have a little bit more pompous attitude when he talks. Alvar is long-winded. Bojidar is kind of in this broken English, half crazed. But the Minotaur one, oh my gosh, spell correct, spell grammar, whatever it is,
Mhm.
didn't like anything because he was speaking in very improper English. You know, like a 3-year-old learning to talk. But
I
but that actually ended up being to my advantage because then that let me know when I was writing out his structure that I was actually writing it the right way because it was freaking out the AI. I mean, not the AI, but the correcting. Because the fact that, one of the lines, it was, if it was in regular English, this is my wife, Lily. And so broken up English, it's me, mate, matron, Lily.
Aw.
But I used it to my advantage because it was telling me I was writing his dialogue the way I wanted it to.
Huh?
I wanted it to be broken English, but it would actually, make sense in the broken English without making sense.
Yep, yep. That's yeah. You like the space bikers, Magic? You know, we had that chat a while ago. The space bikers in
Mm-hmm.
Star Shuttle, and the way they talk, like they have like different level of broken grammar. That's something that I decided that I was going to do, because I was making um, different different errors every time when I was trying to to write a specific broken English style, and I was making different mistakes every time, and I decided that I would embrace, as it is my philosophy, to embrace the mistakes, and try to make the mistakes work for you if possible, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's not possible. But yeah, and this gave me the idea to develop like 5 different levels of biker speak for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so the second example is kind of similar to what you're saying. So we're going back to the Minotaur. Minotaur doesn't have a plural because in Greek mythology there was only one, the Minotaur, the guardian of the labyrinth, the ultimate beast of battle, right? Well, it kept flagging my story because I would use Minotaurs as plural because I wrote them as an entire race, an entire tribe. Well, it's a race with multiple tribes, but there's only one tribe featured in my story right now. But after a while I got sick and tired of fighting it, so I made up my own word. Instead of Minotaurs, I changed it because, like I said, I didn't use any AI or anything to write the story. The story is 100% me. But I was definitely losing to the spell check and to the grammar, which I already revealed earlier in the stream. I have to have just being dyslexic. There's no way around it for me. So I got sick and tired of them flagging every time I said Minotaurs when one of my main characters is a Minotaur. He's not only a Minotaur, he is the chief of the Minotaur tribe. So instead, I made up a word to replace the Minotaurs plural because it doesn't exist with Minotauri, and that is what I named the tribe. So
Good.
I used that to my advantage too, where I knew I was intentionally creating all these typos because it's a word that doesn't exist. So I made up a word to make up for it and actually added more lore and in depth to the actual story.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
Definitely. There's a lot of creative ways you can approach this. My dog just threw himself at me, wanting attention. But there's a lot of
Uh-oh.
creative ways you can approach this, and a lot of sort of tips and tricks to hunt down these typos. But there's also those other pesky things that are in literature. Usually, a variety of errors or things that can be seen as errors. One I often run into, and that is overly repetitive words. You see the word pop up far too much. One sentence to the other sentence to the paragraph, and one way that or one aspect that I know all authors deal with, and that is repetitive. What's that terminology? It was right there. Pronouns,
Mm,
repetitive pronouns, or the use of a character's name far too many times. And a way I get around this is I have like um, 3 or 4 different ways to identify the character, which is usually um, mixing their gender with their mood. Call them the somber woman. You know, or another way is using their using their profession. If they're an assassin, you call them
or their
the
race.
assassin. Yeah, things of that nature, because you're gonna run into that great wrestling with repetitiveness in between the words. How do you guys sort of deal with this?
Yeah, it's pretty much in a similar way. I have like a small list of so-called like names, like extra names to address each character. And I've also added like nicknames for them. Um, I can also address them, of course, by their profession or by their achievements. And you can, of course, even add the nicknames that their enemies use for them. For example, Captain Anitzer, um, after a certain uh, victory that he achieved on a certain icy planet called Gaur, they begin to like they slap this this nickname, the Butcher of Gaur, because he engineered the like it was like a massive loss for them, and they've lost like hundreds of thousands of troops and a large amount of spaceships, and it's like, yes, he engineered it. He screwed us up, like he's like insidious tactics and stuff. Yes, he's the Butcher of Gaor, and this like stuck, and he uses it. He's like, "Ooh, hello there!" Like um, he doesn't even uses his name. He kind of capitalized on their fear of him in some cases, and their hatred for him. It's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Hello, guys. It's the Butcher of Galar, and they're like, oh shit. So yeah, that's the thing.
That's
So,
go ahead.
go for it.
Maggie
You're
knows.
good. Go.
She read that one.
So I kind of have a rule with repeat things. First things first, I try not to have the same thing within 2 sentences of each other. Like whether it's a name, whether it's a word, I try really hard to keep them from overdoing it. However, it was the Lord Otter that made me realize that I was using the word look way too much. In fact, one of my drafts, I have had too many drafts to count.
And
No,
just
that's
and
not true.
just
I've had 4.
just two.
So what it was I went and actually typed in the search the word look, and it turned out I had that word in my book as many times as pages.
Oh
So
boy.
I had to use that word once every page somewhere. But it gave me an opportunity because I became aware that I was overusing it too much, that I went back and was able to rewrite the sentence to add more, unless somebody was actually speaking, to add more in depth to what they were looking at or how they turned to, kind of glance around and absorb things. It was actually a chance for me to go and expand in a little bit more detail once I realized that look was just an escape for me being lazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we
one of
have
the
those comfort words, that's for sure.
yeah.
How about you, R.H. Snow? What's your little process on that one?
The hardest thing for me was the fact that, yes, I have one main character who actually his name is the Watcher. It's not just Watcher, it's the, some of them will call him Watcher. That's basically his slave name. He was depersonalized, but that's his job. It's what he does. And he keeps it as his main title throughout the book. And at first it was really hard for me to decide. We had a slow reveal on the fact that he actually has a name, that it's not known to the reader. In fact, you don't find out until the end of the first chapter. In fact, Gino knows that, having read it, that you don't find out until the first chapter that he actually has a name, that he's not just this dehumanized prisoner. And so I was like, well, how do I do that? Do I start calling him by his name? Well, no, we decided to go ahead and just call him by the name that the readers first are introduced to him. So he has this sort of a nondescript name, which means if I use the word they were watching something, it feels super, super repetitive. Oh my gosh. So I can't really use the word watch too much if I have my main character. And the second thing is that I had to come up with it. Well, he does have his name. It's only used by the very few people that are allowed, that he wants them to have, because true names are considered to be very powerful in the stories. People have their real names, the name that God knows them by. And so they usually have a name that they're called, and then there's their true name. And so for each of them, they have a job. For instance, Dominic Santos is the judge. He starts off as a director and he ends up being promoted to a judge. Well, I had to find a way to segue his name from being not just the director, as Director Santos, but had to take my readers into, they were going to change their mind of him as being the director to being the judge. And I had to take them through that process so they wouldn't feel awkward or go, well, who is that? They didn't, not know who it is. And so I kind of like Mahjong that way. I look at things in blocks of paragraphs. And because my fonts are so huge, I have a tendency to break up my paragraphs into smaller chunks. And so I have a paragraph will usually be less than 250 words. And I have the character's name, the name that they are given in the series. So for the Watcher, he's the Watcher. And then he also has a job name, just like Black Knight talked about. So he's the Marshal. And they usually have a descriptor with it, because I have several characters that may have the same job description. So for him, he's the Big Marshal, or Marshal Azarian. So I can use the Watcher. I use his job name. Occasionally, somebody will describe them if the voice that is describing it, if the narrative look is from Rose's point of view, she may call him a big brawler because she first knows him as a fighter. So occasionally that name will show up, but we usually try to keep it to two names and switch between the name that's given in the story, the Watcher, Marshal Azarian, and then he as the pronoun. And we'll keep it in between those three, and I try to rotate them so that we have usually no more than one time that I'll call him the Watcher in a paragraph. And then we'll switch to the job description. It's a way sort of introducing people back to what he's actually doing, who he is. And it's the same thing for each character. So each character, because we have so much dialogue, sometimes with very large groups, it gets a little complicated. When you have more than 8 people talking, how do you keep everybody switched out? Well, you have to use a name. Well, it gets pretty boring pretty quick if you're just saying the Watcher, the Watcher, the Watcher, Watcher. So we have to have that pattern set change over. And so I started looking at it in chunks of paragraphs. And by looking at it visually for the paragraph, seeing it from that position, I was able to see that I have no more than 1 or 2 times that person's actual name is mentioned, and then it goes to job descriptor, and then it goes to the personal pronouns.
Yeah.
There's a
That's what I
science
do.
behind it. There's a science behind it, that's for sure. And you kind of brought that up as well. Is like it can vary from story to story, depending on character tags and names that you use. Like your example was perfect. A character called the Watcher. That's gonna bring up some repetitive issues down the line. Possibly completely eliminating the word watch from your manuscript. Did you allow the word watch, like slither that one in here or there, or is it just like completely gone?
Actually, I use it when other characters are talking. Well, okay, so I say talking. Usually, I didn't go into the story writing saying I'm going to have only one point of view or I have just on the narrative. I actually write it like I would write an episodic TV show, and sometimes the characters will change. And so we usually have a character that will have their point of view and they are seeing the action and they are witnessing the other people around them. As a result, if Rose is describing what goes on with the Watcher, if Rose is riding down the road and she's with him, the Watcher may be mentioned in the previous paragraph, but when I get to her paragraph where she's viewing the world around her, she can use the word watch. If his name does not show up in that paragraph, I can use the word watch, but I try to use it only once. When I'm going, Hellbilly Highway has been very challenging to write. It's been 3 years in production because actually I wrote it as part of my first big chunk for the road series. And it's the last one in, so I'm finishing it out. There are so many factions in this. There's at least 5 different factions in this group. So I have this huge cast of 30, 50 people that can be mentioned at any given time, at least of which 10 are main characters for their particular faction. And so getting this right and getting the formula right for when am I able to say the word watch? When am I able to say words that may replicate another character's job name or description? It really makes you hone how you write your sentences, because we would be amazed at how often we use the word watch. It's kind of like, look, he was watching this person. That's almost always we use that in reference to when we are looking at something. I actually have to look more and watch less. But how do I do it when they were looking at a thing? Well, I just end up going to the thing happened. I take out they were looking at and I go directly to the action itself. This eliminates a lot of those repetitive words too. So if I went to for a grammatical, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. She watched as he bent down to dust off his boots. Just take out that other part. He dusted off his boots.
Yep.
By taking out that, yeah, and you're saying the same thing. By taking out that and going directly to action, it becomes a little bit tighter. I'm able to avoid a lot of those constant references to how we see things, because the truth is, as human beings, we only have a very few one. The one that gets me. How do you look at something? You're saying the same thing. Gazing, we gaze upon something. We look at it. We watch it. We stare. And then you're starting to get into kind of really hard glance. We glance a lot.
Inspect.
Thank you. We inspect things. Study.
Study.
But you have to start looking at from that perspective. How do we do it?
Witness.
Smiling.
Yeah.
What other word is there for frown? Okay, frown. What's another word for frown? Grimace.
Mm-hmm.
Those expressions that we use. The one that's the hardest one for me.
Yeah.
Nodding and shaking her head. I have a nonverbal character. He nods his head constantly or shakes his head constantly. If I do it every time when he's trying to communicate, I literally have it on a page 6 times. So I had to come up with a different way without saying he moved his head in affirmative. It just doesn't work.
And it's 2 words there you're dealing with. It's both shaking the head.
Yes. There's really not, there's no word for they shook their head. We nod, but what is the shaking your head?
He shook, he nodded.
Yeah, you shook, but you have to put your head
bobbling up and down.
Bobbling. Bobbling.
Yeah.
Right? You probably have to add like, probably like some emotion to it.
Use it. Yeah, you have to sometimes use it, but not all the time.
I got one for you. So one of the lines of my story involves, his name is Bobley, but his friends call him Bob for short. So it mentioned Bob riding his goat, who was bobbing their head. It's just things you got to be careful of, but at the same time, it was kind of funny, so I left it in.
I love that. But let's be honest here. There are places in, and this is where AI fails, and we need to be very aware of this. The rhythm of human speech is repetitive to a certain extent. When we look at the way that, let's call it the Southern Baptist preacher, because it's based on the King James Bible, and it does things in groups of 3. I'm willing to tell you, I'm wanting to tell you, I'm waiting to tell you. That is prose. It has a thing where a person is telling this person over and over again, using repetitive words to create a picture. And AI wants to strip all of that out. And you have to be careful because we lose our prose when we don't repeat. So the certain things that are hammered home by using a repetitive word can actually create a picture that no other one can create. You talked about Bob bobbling along. That's perfect.
Yep.
It's alliterative. Too much alliteration is terrible, but I love alliteration. I think it's amazing, and I hate the fact that people want to cut it all out because you're too alliterative. I don't care. The answer is I don't.
No,
Poe loved it. If you like Edgar Allan Poe, then I should be able to alliterate all the heck I want, and y'all can just go ahead and live with it. And to a certain extent, it'll get overbearing after a while. We have to be careful with it. But with that repetitive language, having it in a phrase that is repeated a few words down, when it is connected in such a way that it flows, is not a bad thing. And that's just learned by reading stuff of the old style. And you do this a lot, James, reading the old writers. You get a sense of that rhythm. But the best way to find it is actually to read the King James Bible in English. And then to listen to Southern Baptist preachers, especially the ones from the 40s and 50s, if you can find the old sermons, or African American preachers of today. They have a repetitive triplicate rhythm that will use phrasing in such a way that it repeats to emphasize. And it has a broken up phrase that does the triplicate meme that we have stuck in our head so often.
Yeah.
You do that, you will be able to recreate human language in such a way that AI will not emulate it. And you prove, therefore, that you are human.
Yeah,
Gino helped
definitely.
me with one of those. Oh, sorry, James.
No, go ahead, Monty.
So, in my description of my absolute main character, I won't go into full details, but at the end of the description, Gino actually helped me because I couldn't figure out a way to solidify how absolutely normal this guy was, right? I didn't want him to stand out in a crowd. I actually wanted him to be completely neutral, that you wouldn't expect to be the hero. But that's the way I designed it. Gino actually was the one who helped me by ending his description with, "It's completely remarkable by how unremarkable he truly was."
See, that's beautiful. That way that, okay, Gino, you're such a genius. I hope you're out there and you hear me talking about King Bob, the master of language, because I love that. That's the repetitive flip. Where you take it and it's remarkable how unremarkable he was. That's the beauty of English. And in fact, in Spanish, for anybody who knows a little bit of Espanol, Cantinflas was a famous Spanish comedian or Mexican comedian. He uses repetitive language in Spanish to create rhythms that are comedic. And that's how one of his archetypes is the repetitive comedic phrase. We've lost that ability when we start saying it must be grammatically correct and it must be written as if an AI has stripped it of all grammatical errors. We lose prose when we over process language. And so getting those phrases back in, getting those little repetitive flips, or getting the repetitive prose or the triplicate phrase, these are things that build our own prose, and you can use these in your narrative voice, even if your characters are very simplistic, and if you have a book where it does have a place for that prose to live. And I would say, honestly, that's up to your narrative voice. But find a way to allow yourself to have your own human voice. And the only way you can do it is by not over processing your language.
Well said. And with that, as we come close to the end here, I think we really had a good conversation. Let's go ahead and share some of our final thoughts and where people can find us. Let's start off with you, Black Knight.
Well, I hope that our friends and our readers, and our fellow indie authors, will find new and better ways to hunt down the typos, the pesky typos, the ninja typos, especially the masters, like um, max level ninjutsu typos. Other than the tricks that we shared, and probably most of them use, you never know. They might know better ways. And I urge them to share that in the comments of this video. As to where you can find me, you can find all of my Star Shattered Universe books on Amazon, including the two story collections, A Mandate of Sword and Railgun and The Blood of Tyrant, plus my Shadow Fantasy book, Lord of Bones. And of course, you can go to my Substack, theblackknightsubstack.com, where you can read my poetry and all of the current short stories, serialized stories, and novelettes. Yeah.
Excellent. Let's head down to Maji. You can hear my dog in the background. He wants to play right now. Maji, some final thoughts where people can find you.
So one thing that we didn't mention that I use that actually I kind of learned from Daniel, just a little way out the door, is a lot of the new programs have read aloud. Just listening to your story be read aloud, even if it's a boring AI voice, you'll find a lot of errors that way. But I don't really have a can find me at the moment. But if you guys ever want to get a hold of me, everybody on this chat knows how to get a hold of me. So feel free to ask them and stuff. But I usually hang out on regular stream on Mondays, weekly wing it, and then in Drink with Crazy's Discord.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's multiple ways you can find me if you really, really wanted to.
Uh,
But I don't have a home. I'm a drifter, and I'm fine with that. It's actually the name of one of my characters.
My
the
pretty.
Drifter Maji. So, all right, R8 Snow, final thoughts where we can find you.
Yeah, backing up, backing up Maji. She's right about the reading aloud part. And in fact, if you really want to find every typo you've ever made, make your audiobook. Just do it. You'll be like, holy crap. It is just insane. You've made it all the way. Now you're having your audiobook. You finally got reviews. Everything's cool. And you find a phrase that is just so unreadable. You're like, why? Why is it? Because it looked okay when you wrote it. When you're writing it, it actually is a different thing than when you're reading it out loud. Things that look great on paper sometimes don't speak well. So it's the final frontier that as you go in and you read your audiobook, you will not only find horrendous typos and things that you misspelled, egregious grammatical errors, but you will also find things that looked great on paper, but absolutely don't sound like they're supposed to sound when you're speaking them. As a result, it is the ultimate takedown for an author. Make your audiobook and be prepared to cry in your Wheaties because it is going to eat you up. And that's just the way it is. It's okay. Everybody goes through this. Like I said, it's tough. And if we do it ourselves, it actually grows us as an author as well, because we're reading our own characters out loud. So it really helps us. And you can find me at watchofthedam.com, where I have all my books. I also, and I think I have a store up, but I don't know if anything comes through it because I don't know how that's set up right now. I didn't do it. It's my other people that did it for me, and I got to figure that one out. You can find me on Amazon, of course. Under R.H. Snow and Watcher of the Damned, or you can find me on my socials, of course, on X, where I have a pretty decent sized following. And then I've got, of course, my other socials on my Substack, where my illustrious co-host James and Black Knight are found under R.H. Snow. And you can see them all at flow.page/R.H. Snow. That is flow.page/R.H. Snow.
Awesome. And with that, everybody, thank you for watching. If you're part of the replay crew, leave a comment down below. Give us a like. Show it to your friends. Tell them all about the show. And we'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a good rest of your day.